you can always just take the under on the Titans, who have a very difficult schedule, and who are, look, I mean, they lost A.J. Brown this offseason. They traded A.J. Brown to Philadelphia. Julio Jones was released. Janoris Jenkins was released. Jayon Brown, a productive linebacker, signed with Las Vegas. You have Roger Saffold, who signed with Buffalo. Like, so you're taking Rashaan Evans, signed with Atlanta. Like, they added Robert Woods and added Austin Hooper. They drafted Malik Willis. There are Mike Vrabel's teams compete year in and year out. I don't think they're going to crater, but they've also gone 9-7 a lot, or 9-7 a lot. I guess now it would be 9-8, but with an over under of 9.5 and the under they don't have the same odds, under -125. You start to look at this schedule, Sully, and I think maybe there's an easier chance of the Titans going under than the Colts going over.
Yeah. And I would lean the under here too. And you can kind of just ride the narrative a little bit too, because again, Ryan Tannehill is someone who I've talked about on here with you a couple of times. We do feel like he's plateaued a little bit. I mean, obviously the tail end of last season was not great for him. And if that downward trajectory continues, you're going to have to wonder, when are you going to have that conversation of, is Malik Willis going to start to see time? And then you look at this schedule. I mean, what is that? Week 9 on that gauntlet of Kansas City, Denver, Green Bay, Cincinnati. I mean, that is a murderer's row.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous that is their schedule.
So, I mean, really, you could even say all right, so just listen. All right, this schedule is really hard. I mean, really hard. So, they have their first 5 games and then a week 6 bye, which I don't think NFL teams like. A week 6 bye means you're getting that bye out of the way so early in a 17-game season, and you've got this running back in Derrick Henry who you would love to give like a mid to late season break for, because he's been dealing with injuries. And they get the Giants at home in week 1, then they're at Buffalo. I think 1-1. I think most logical people would say 1-1. Raiders at home, at the Colts, so we're at 2-2, and then at the Washington Commanders. I mean, I'm down enough on Washington where I'll give them 3-2 going into the week 6 bye. I think 4-1 is entirely possible if they won in Indianapolis, but I think 3-2 is that's following right along with what the Vegas lines will be, right?
Yep.
So you're 3-2 and you come out of the week 6 bye, and you're hosting the Colts. So give them the win if you want. That's 4-2. But you're saying week 7 on is you're hosting your chief division rival. You have 2 road games against the bad teams in your division still remaining on the calendar. You also have the Jaguars at home, and then the rest of it is Kansas City, Denver, Green Bay, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, the Chargers, and the Cowboys. That is brutal.
I don't think that there's a harder schedule down the stretch in the NFL, to be honest.
No.
I mean, how can there be?
And the Chiefs, Packers, Eagles, Chargers are all on the road. So let's say you win Indianapolis. We'll give them Houston too, I guess. What we say, 3-2. So that's 5-2. Chiefs loss. And look, the Titans have beaten a lot of good teams. So
yeah, to their credit, to Tennessee's credit, out of all of the wide receivers that we've seen depart this offseason, as talented as A.J. Brown is, I almost feel like just because of the way that Tennessee plays, they run that offense through Derrick Henry, they may be able to absorb that type of a loss better than a Green Bay losing Devontae Adams, or better than a Kansas City losing a guy like Tyreek Hill, just simply of how they run their offense.
Sure.
But it is still going to be a tough road for them. I mean, even though you can cushion that type of a loss, maybe better than others by how you play, I don't know if you get into these track meets with all of these teams that we see, I don't know how much Derrick Henry is going to be able to help you there.
Yeah, I forgot to include obviously that they drafted Treylon Burks in the first round.
Yeah.
But it's Treylon Burks and Robert Woods is not A.J. Brown and Robert Woods.
Right.
I mean, he's rookie wide receiver. I mean, of these non-divisional games where it's KC, Denver, Green Bay, Cincy, Philly, Chargers, and Cowboys. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. What do you think the record is in those? 2-5?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, if you're at 5-3, 3-2, 5-2, that puts you at 7-7, and then it's then you fill it in with 2 games against Jacksonville and 1 against Houston. So it's can you sweep Jacksonville, who should be better?
Yeah.
and beat Houston at, and you have to sweep Jacksonville and Houston is basically going to be the deciding factor here, unless they just, really take care of business in some of these bigger games. It's just hard to see them winning in Green Bay. I think Philadelphia would absolutely be favored unless the Eagles take a drastic turn down. The Chargers would be favored too, unless the Titans don't really have this massive home field type of advantage they're going to steal from the Chargers. I wouldn't think in Los Angeles. Denver could easily come into Tennessee and beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Since he could too. Yeah, I mean we've literally seen it, so it's not.
And one thing that's worth pointing out here too is let's just say we get to this Dallas game and they lose and maybe you're out of playoff contention going into week 18. Is that a Malik Willis situation? Do you see, do they just kind of say, all right, let's just kind of see what we have here now that we're out of it? That opens up the door for, the Jacksonville Jaguars to possibly get one on you there too. So when you talk about sweeping the division, there is a storyline in place in that final week where you might even be playing a rookie quarterback just to see what you have.
Yeah. I mean, if they don't win those early games, and again, we're not trying to crap on Tennessee either. I mean,
no, it's just a difficult schedule.
It's a really hard schedule, especially after the early bye and then just a brutal run of games. Like you look at that, that is eye popping how tough that is. Like who they've got to play. I mean, it's just a really, really hard schedule. So it's it's not going to be an easy run for them. We'll both take the under on the Titans, right?
Yeah.
All right. So slight lean over on the Colts, slight lean under on the Titans. As Barnwell pointed out to me, look, if you're taking a bet in May, actually, I don't know if Bill said this, but if you're taking a bet in May, you're better off taking an under than an over, because there are things that can happen to change if Derrick Henry gets hurt in off OTAs, I mean, just hypothetically, he tears his ACL in OTAs, this number is not going to be 9.5. They lose some offensive linemen, or Ryan Tannehill, suffers some injury and they have to start Malik Willis the whole season.
6.5. I mean, you could go down 3 games.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably 7.5, but it's not crazy at all. Or the Jaguar, Trevor Lawrence and Davis Mills look great. Taking the over on the Colts, it builds in risk that if something bad happens to the Colts, you can't change that. Taking the under on the Titans, if something bad happens to Tennessee, you probably got some pretty good value.